Hi, my name's Tim Melling and I work for Naturetrek, and I'm here to talk to you about an expedition that we make to the Falkland Islands, to South Georgia, and to the continent of Antarctica. And I just want to start off with a map because I just want to show you the distances involved. So on the left-hand side of that map is the southern tip of South America, Tierra del Fuego, and that little double archipelago nearby, I say nearby, about 400 miles away, is the Falkland Islands. And then right the way over to the right of the photograph is the island of South Georgia, which is 1,300 miles east of South America. And then right at the south, that's the peninsula of Antarctica. So you're talking about very, very big distances. So a lot of that time is spent at sea. So you see an awful lot of seabirds, and I'll just rattle through these. This is called the white-chinned petrel. That's one of the rare photographs where you can just about see that tiny postage stamp-sized patch of white at the base of its bill. Very, very common birds at the sea. You get Wilson's petrels as well. This is another highly sought-after bird, which is the great shearwater. Large numbers of them breed around the Falkland Islands, so they're a common bird in the seas around there. And black-browed albatrosses, you've seen these before you've even left the channels outside South America. And then after 2 days, you arrive at the Falkland Islands and you look, you think, oh, good, we've got here early morning, and you see that those beaches look full already. But of course, it's not full of humans. The beaches are full of penguins. And there are several species of penguins that you see here, including these are the Gen 2 penguins. They seem to sort of walk in line and do sort of very, very funny human things. These are the southern Rockhopper penguins, which are also found on the Falkland Islands. They go out and hunt en masse, hunting for krill and fish and things like that. There's something about this photograph reminds me of Chariots of Fire. I've always got that Vangelis music in my head when I see this photograph. So, and that's what a rockhopper looks like when it's feeding its chick. It's one of the many species that has these little yellow crests above its head there. So there are also good colonies of the black-browed albatross that we've just mentioned on the Falklands. They tend to nest near little streams, and they build these egg cup-shaped nests, and usually have a single youngster. And there's one, a fluffy youngster, just sort of flapping its wings a little bit, learning how to fly there. So the Falkland Islands steamer duck is a flightless bird. Even though it looks like it's got big wings, it cannot fly. And it's endemic to the Falkland Islands, occurs nowhere else on the planet. They're common on the beaches there. And this is a place called Carcass Island, nothing to do with dead bodies, but it was named after HMS Carcass, which once landed there and named it. And again, great colonies of animals here. This is the Magallanic penguin. They nest in burrows underground, and this is a pair that are calling and just pair bonding with their single chick just next to them there. This bird is they call these birds Sinclaudis, which means like a dipper in South America. But here, they're on the Falklands, they're associated with tussock grass. So they call this bird the Tussock Bird. And it's a little thrush-sized bird that sort of runs around. And it's only found on the Falkland Islands. So that's another one that you need to visit the Falkland Islands to see. And this is the Tussock Grass, which occurs on the Falkland Islands. You can see that there's a Magallanic Penguin there in the foreground, so you can see that these tussocks can be about 9 or 10 feet tall. Some of them are absolutely enormous. This is Cobb's wren, which is another wren that occurs nowhere else on the planet, only found on the Falkland Islands, named after a Dr. Cobb who lived there and collected birds a century or so ago. But that's another one. But if you're trying to see all the wrens in the world, you have to visit the Falkland Islands. And the white bridled finch as well. And this one also occurs in South America, but a great bird to see. Then we leave the Falkland Islands and we head off in the sea towards South Georgia, and as we get to the deeper waters we start to see a few different birds, like this black-bellied storm petrel, and this is the grey-rumped storm petrel, which is quite a rare and difficult bird to see, but we found it in association with floating racks of seaweed, but very difficult to get close to and photograph. But there it is, grey-rumped storm petrel. And prions as well. This one is the slender-billed prion, but most people, I I find, have to take photographs of the primes, because there are several species and they all look very, very similar, and they vary in the intensity of the little black W shape on the back, and in the intensity of the eye pattern and in the bill shape. I'll show you another couple of species later on. This is the southern royal albatross, the first of the big albatrosses that we see, but we also see northern royal albatross. These breed over near New Zealand, but they wander around the Southern Ocean, so they're right around the other side of the planet, around the Falkland Islands and South Georgia. And the grey-headed albatross as well. This was photographed at a place called Shag Rocks, named because the South Georgia shag nests on it, but it's again right in the middle of the ocean, in between the Falklands and the South Georgia. Here is also a good place for whales. We see lots of humpback whales and fin whales, but also this is the distinctive double blow of a right whale, and these are southern right whales, and there's one that's breaching. We also get some rare whales here. This is the southern bottlenose whales here, and which is hardly ever seen and hardly ever photographed, but we've seen them every time we've done this trip. And then as you approach South Georgia, you cross the Antarctic front, where the cold Antarctic water meets the warm tropical water. And here you start seeing things like icebergs. And the birds are very different too. This is where you start to see snow petrels. They're never common. And pintado petrels, painted petrels as well. So, and then after another 3 days at sea, we eventually reach South Georgia, looking very ominous there with clouds covering it. And this is I mean, of all the places I've visited on the planet, this is one of my favorite places. Even on a dull day like today, it's just amazing, with huge numbers of king penguins. This is a place called Salisbury Plain, and it's the second biggest king penguin colony on the planet. And if you look, the king penguins don't just go back to that line of tussock grass, they go right the way beyond to the base of the mountains there as well. And king penguins form very strong pair bonds, so you often see them walking around in couples here. And when you get in amongst the colony, look at that, wall to wall king penguins. It's like one of the Where's Wally photographs, isn't it there? So, and they come down to the beaches to swim as well. It looks like a sort of a big popular holiday resort beach here. This is also where you get the South Georgia pipit. It's the only songbird that breeds in the Antarctic region, and it's the most southerly songbird on the planet. So it's a pipit, and it breeds on South Georgia. But during the whaling period, lots of rats came ashore with the whales, and they killed off lots of the ground nesting birds. So it was restricted to just a few little offshore islands off South Georgia. But fortunately, they've managed to eliminate rats, and the South Georgia pipits are starting to colonize South Georgia itself. And this bird was actually photographed on the mainland of South Georgia, so it's a good news story, this one. There's also colonies of wandering albatrosses. This is the albatross with the largest wingspan of any bird on the planet, and here are a couple of them in the tussock grass doing the nesting displays. Further south is a place called St Andrews Bay, which is on South Georgia, and this is home to the largest king penguin colony on the planet. Look at that. I've heard various estimations, but around about 750,000 seems to be what people think here. And because they take 15 months to breed, they're always asynchronous. Birds are breeding all the time. So if you visit a colony, you'll see some birds with eggs, some with very small chicks, some birds with big chicks like this that they call busbies, and some with that have finished breeding and recently fledged chicks. So, and also you get colonies of this light-mantled sooty albatross here, which is just a fabulous, another one of the albatrosses. This was taken when we climbed up one of the hills on South Georgia, and so we had the nesting albatrosses at eye level. So I took this photograph. I was sat on the beach just getting my camera ready, and this king penguin walked up to me and looked at me. Now, they have special rules that you're not supposed to approach the wildlife, but when you sit down minding your own business and the wildlife approaches you, you can't do anything about it. But somebody else had the wherewithal to take a photograph of me taking this photograph. So that was me having a chat with the same king penguin there. So a great photograph, that. So also in South Georgia, we see another of the yellow-crested penguins. This is the Macaroni penguin, named after the Macaronis were 17th century dandies, maybe 18th century, but who used to put feathers in their caps. And because these have yellow feathers like in their caps, they were called Macaroni penguins. There's a close-up one. They look sad, Macaroni penguins, because the corner of their bill sort of falls down with a very sad expression on their faces there. Then we have to leave South Georgia and travel across the southern oceans to reach Antarctica itself. This is can be rough sometimes, but you still get lots of birds when everything's chopped up and moving. That's another black-browed albatross, but there's a blue whale as well that we managed to see in the south of South Georgia. There is a good population of blue whales down there, and there's always the chance of seeing them. But if you can just see the detail on that photograph, there's lots and lots of wildlife in there. So this is where we start to see the southern fulmars and more of the snow petrels, and this is a South Georgia diving petrel. We saw 3 species of diving petrel on this last trip there, and these are 2 different species of prions as well. The one on the right with the bold head pattern and the large bill is an Antarctic prion, and that's the common one, and the one on the left in this area is the rarer bird. This is the fairy prion, and this has got more black on the tail and a softer facial expression and a smaller bill. But over in New Zealand, the numbers are reversed, and their fairy prion is the common one, and Antarctic prion is the rarer one. And this is a prion with a white tail. This is known as the blue petrel, again common in these oceans. And this is the Antarctic petrel, which I believe breeds further south than any other seabird. It breeds on cliffs that come out of right down near the South Pole. And we were told that these were very scarce birds and difficult to find. So if you find one, make sure everybody gets onto it. But we managed to find the molting grounds, and there were hundreds, if not thousands of them on the icebergs in this area that we cut across, and these are all Antarctic petrels, a supposedly rare bird. So when you get down to Antarctica itself, there's an awful lot of ice in the water, pack ice, icebergs, and lots of whales down there as well. This one happens to be a humpback, but we also saw lots of fin whales down there. So, and you can take spectacular shots as well, like this wandering albatross flying in front of a huge, great iceberg there. So this is quite a difficult photograph to capture, but these are Arctic terns down in the Antarctic. You can tell they're Arctic terns and not the Antarctic terns, which look very similar because they're out of sync with the breeding. These ones in their summer are all in winter plumage, all in non-breeding plumage. So you can see they've got a little bit of white on their heads there, but and here they are. So it's great that you've and these birds see more daylight than any other bird on the planet, and one of the farthest traveling as well, because they can breed right up in the high Arctic in places like Svalbard, and then winter right down in the southern ocean near the Antarctica itself. So they cover some huge distances. Here's another great iceberg, and those are 5 or 6 penguins just walking across an iceberg in the water early in the morning. They hop up out of the water and then just have a rest on the iceberg. I know it's early in the morning because the sun is low and they're casting long shadows there. So this is a chin-strap penguin with a glacier behind. This is another one of the real far south breeding penguins, as is this one, which is a Daly penguin. I was photographing the polar ice cap in the distance there, and this Daly penguin photobombed me by jumping out of the water in front of me. So these are the Daly penguins, and we visit colonies of these as well. Again, they often wander around in pairs because they've got very, very strong pair bonds, and it's just like a couple out having a promenade on a summer's afternoon here. So, and there's some more 6 more Daly penguins right down in the southern oceans. Lots of different seals down there as well. There are lots of crab-eating seals, which actually eat krill rather than crab. And these are Weddell seals. These eat a lot of fish and krill as well here. And there is also leopard seals, which actually eat penguins. Now, the penguins aren't bothered at all about Weddell or crab-eater seals. But this was the moment that this Adelie penguin suddenly realised that the seal on there wasn't a Weddell seal. It was actually a penguin-eating leopard seal. And look at the look of horror on its face there as it spotted it. So these things specialise on eating penguins. And these, plenty of orcas down there as well. They eat seals and they eat penguins as well. So they've got a lot to contend with when they're in the water and out. There's a lot of things predating these things. So, and this is right down on the Antarctic Peninsula itself. We stopped and there was a colony of Gen 2 penguins right down there, but look at all the snow and ice. It's a spectacular, spectacular place. And early in the morning, we had a beautiful sunrise one morning where all the sky turned fiery orange and it was on there. And because you're so far south, it really draws out. It's not a short-lived thing. It was like this for hours at a time, these wonderful pastel sunset shades there. And we're planning, COVID willing, to visit Antarctica next year. We're going from the 22nd of November until the 15th of December 2021, and that will hopefully coincide with the eclipse in Antarctica, that the full solar eclipse down there. So yeah, hope you've enjoyed this talk. Bye for now.